Hello, hello, human geographers. We are now officially in the migration portion of our Unit 2. So we're on causes of migration for 2.10. Right here, right at the end, almost done with this unit. So for the objective and essential learning from College Board, today we're going to explain how different causal factors encourage migration. So I'm sure maybe you've heard some of these terms like push and pull factors. We're going to be looking at those. Also intervening opportunities and intervening obstacles, and seeing how we can use ESPN to understand those. So what is migration? Migration is the permanent or semi-permanent relocation of people from one place to another. So I think it's very easy to get confused, these two concepts, immigration and emigration, or immigrant and emigrant. So immigration is movement into a location. So think of I into immigration or in migration. So this is referencing the phenomenon of people coming into a place. And then emigration is the movement away or exiting of a location. So you can also think of this as like people, when people leave a country. So if we're talking about a situation, depending on which angle you're talking about it from, you would either say immigration or emigration. So why do people migrate? So we have push factors and pull factors. Push factors, these are negative circumstances. So negative things, events, conditions in a location that make people want to leave or make them like push them out. Pull factors, these are positive things. They like draw people to a place. A lot of times push factors tend to be more like specific, whereas pull factors sometimes are kind of like a general idea, or even like a general hope of what a place might be like. And again, we can view these, there's Addie, we can view these through ESPN, environmental, social, political, or natural / environmental, economic, social, political, and natural. So for these types of barriers or things that stop people's travel. So we have intervening obstacles. These are barriers that hold people back from traveling. These tend to be issues, maybe like visa problems, maybe issues with transportation, things like that. Whereas intervening opportunities, these are things that make people want to stop. Like maybe they find a job or they're able to find a good place to live, things like that. So intervening obstacle, something that stops them through their journey in a way that's typically negative. And then intervening opportunity typically is positive, right? Something that they want and it entices them to stop traveling. So again, thinking about ESPN, so this first one, economic push and pull factors. Push factors and pull factors a lot of times are kind of like mirrored. So push factors would be job loss, lack of employment opportunities, low wages. For pull factors, things that draw people to a place with a lot of job opportunities, people will tend to want to go there, or higher wages, right? Maybe like a certain area is like has higher paying jobs, or maybe has a minimum wage that's higher than where they're from. And then also seasonal jobs. So maybe around here we might see people working in like ski towns during winter and things like that. This case study, this like little example, is a Bracero program. So during World War II, there was a labor shortage in the US and so many men were off at war fighting. So the US government and the Mexican government worked out a deal to have a guest worker program that provided jobs for people from Mexico, but in the US. And also jobs within transportation. This tends to be known for agriculture, more so than transportation. And during this time period, we had 4.6 million people from Mexico migrating to the US for this work opportunity. So for social and demographic push and pull factors. So for push factors tends to be negative things, right? So discrimination, prejudice, persecution, and racism due to gender, ethnicity, and or religion, right? All not good things. Gender roles sometimes also can like push people away from a place. Men are also more often migrants than women. We'll look at that when we get to Ernst Ravenstein's laws of migration. And then for pull factors, things that make people want to go to a place, freedom, and a lack or at least less discrimination from where they're coming from, less prejudice, less persecution, racism, things like that. And then also, this is a really strong pull factor, familial and kinship links. So kin as in family. So people that have families in a particular place, like that is a huge draw for other people that are related to them to go. It's nice to have people that are part of your family that might be able to provide you with like guidance in a new place and support in a new place. This case study, China's imbalanced sex ratio. So this has to do with push and pull factors. So this is kind of like one way to view this situation. There's more men than women in China because of the sex selective abortions from the one-child policy. This is something that we've already mentioned through this class. This has resulted in migration of women from nearby countries to marry young Chinese men, right? So we do see a little bit of that in migration to China from neighboring areas. So for political push and pull factors, these are some of the more common ones. So push factor, war. Of course, you know, if you're living in a place and war breaks out, people will leave. Repressive laws and also discrimination. These are two big ones as well. For pull factors, other places that have peace, right, that they're not at war. And also asylum, places or countries that grant asylum to certain people, they become destinations for those that are pushed out of where they're living. So this case study example we have here are anti-communists from Cuba. So in 1959, Fidel Castro took over Cuba. During that time period, anti-communists were seen as enemies and were jailed, or worse, if their political views were known. So a lot of anti-communists fled to the U.S. and were granted asylum. They were seen as like political refugees. So there's about 1.2 million people of Cuban descent that are specifically in Miami. So that's the closest major city to Florida, which is also misspelled here, sorry. And then natural or environmental push and pull factors. So push factors, natural disasters, droughts, crop failure, intense climate. We see this happen, right? When it comes to like hurricanes or floods, things like that. And then pull factors, desirable climate and landscape. If a place is known as having like good temperature throughout the year or being like scenic and beautiful, then that would be a good pull factor. And then the case study, Hurricane Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina hit Florida back in 2005, we did see like a lot of people move. That happened when I was in high school, and I remember we got a few students down in like deep South Texas in Mission that were coming from Louisiana because their schools were closed because of what happened with Hurricane Katrina. And then finally, we have Ravenstein's laws of migration. These are patterns and trends about migration and migrants. These are not full rules or laws. Like there's always exceptions, so please keep that in mind. But there are 6 main ones that we're going to look at here. So migration is typically short distance. Typically within the same locality, people will move from apartment to apartment or to a house in the general area. Migration often occurs in steps. So it's not just always like one place, point A to point B. Sometimes there's a lot of points in between before getting to your final destination. Urban areas attract both long distance and rural migrants. So when a place is fairly urban, developed, there tends to be more job opportunities. It also tends to be like a larger population, so it's better known. So people from a long distance know of it and will travel there. And then also rural migrants, like people that live in the countryside will know where that place is and will seek to migrate there. Rule 4, every migration generates a counter migration. So as in like a flow back to that same place of people returning or visiting. 5, young, single, adult males are more likely to migrate than females. So again, thinking about the state of the world, right? And who has job opportunities, right? Who's safer, right, to travel on their own? Who doesn't have people who don't have families yet, right? Young single adult males tend to be the ones to move more, and especially longer distance. Women will migrate shorter distances. And then finally, most migration is due to economic factors. So I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to this in terms of like maybe your parents' work and things like that, myself included, right? Moving to be able to have a good job or a better job is a big reason why people decide to migrate. And that is it. I will see